Hey everybody, and welcome to Lost Genre Bridezilla, where we take a look at some of the crazy bride stories that are out there. So let's not waste any time and get started with the first post. This one is from user Abby the Small Fry. I was the manager at a big box fabric retailer, and we got all sorts of crafty brides that came in. So much so that if I ever see burlap and lace at a wedding now, it makes me want to throw up. I have so many stories of different Bridezillas, but I know where I want to start. First one, let's call her A. Came in and was looking for tulle. Her mom, maid of honor, and grandmother were with her. She comes up to me asking where the tulle was. I bring her to her options and immediately things go south. At this point, A won't speak directly to me, she talks through her entourage. I felt very silly, seeing as though I could hear the bride because she was speaking out loud, but would say things like, "Tell her I want something with lace. Tell her this is too shimmery. Tell her this is too pink." And they would comply and tell me as such. Apparently, Grandma had told A that she would make her cathedral veil for her instead of buying one at the dress designer. And we didn't have the correct shade of ivory. I was told her dress was custom made, but the designer wanted to charge $200 for a custom veil to match, and A thought that was silly. I explained that we were a big box retailer, and when you order your veil custom made, it will be dyed to match the dress. They could dye the tulle they buy today, but no! That was absolutely unacceptable! The wedding was in a week and they needed the veil done by tonight. Then, the maid of honor tells me they have driven for an hour to get here specifically because it said we had ivory tulle online. I explained how dye lots can differ from bolt to bolt, and online states this as well. And if they were coming all this way, they should have called first and I would have happily had a staff member available to help them out. This was a Saturday and we were very busy. A becomes irate at this and starts throwing a tantrum inside my store. I tell Grandma, who at this point is the only one staying level-headed, that the options we had out were her only options. I couldn't make fabric fall out of my butt. Grandma managed to talk Mom and maid of honor down into a lace that was closer to the right shade. I don't know what A thought because she was only speaking to Mom at this point in whispers. Then we hit the big issue. Grandma agreed to make a cathedral veil and has never made one before. We go and find a pattern, and turns out the only way to make it work with this fabric was to put a seam down the middle, which as long as the fabric was matched up nicely wouldn't have been very noticeable. A finally starts speaking directly to me, but it's screaming that you can hear through the whole store. The veil they saw when she tried her dress on didn't have a seam, so this one shouldn't either. I rationally started explaining that the only way not to have a seam would be if she purchased a wider fabric. Since she didn't like the colors we had in stock and didn't want to dye it, this was as good as she was going to get. Mom and maid of honor at this point escort A out of the building, leaving me and Grandma to chat. Grandma bought all the fabric, embellishments, and supplies. I found her coupons for a few things, but the fabric alone was $30 a yard, so this poor grandma ended up shelling out about $300 for this veil. You can buy them online for about $50 to $300. That woman was one of the nicest people I have met, and I felt horrible and told her this multiple times she could buy a veil online for cheaper. She kept insisting on buying the fabric and making the veil. I am sorry your granddaughter sucked. Okay, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I know absolutely nothing about veils, nothing at all. But I do know a little bit about math and common sense. So the options were, you can buy a veil online from between $50 to $300. However, the designer had also offered a custom veil for $200 that would match the dress that they had already designed. Now for this, I had to Google cathedral veil because I had no idea what they were. And for those of you who don't know, a cathedral veil is huge. It's long and it's huge. It's like a tent. So poor old grandma, who had committed to her granddaughter that she was going to make this veil and had never done it before, has to end up costing more than $300 for this thing. And not just the cost, but the amount of work that poor grandma's going to have to invest in this thing is a lot. So out of ignorance, I ask, and if anybody can reply in the comment section, that'd be great because I'd be learning something. Is a cathedral veil something that really adds to the whole wedding experience? Like, is it necessary to have such a big veil to make the bride look better or something? I don't know. So before we move on to the next post, let's take a look at a Bridezilla Facebook rant. I literally was just told I cannot go try on wedding dresses unless I'm wearing a mask. You've got to be kidding me. Wow, just wow. A mask with my wedding gown isn't exactly the look I'm going for. What is the look you're going for? Sick and contagious with the wedding gown? Honestly, what's the difference? You're just gonna try it on. It's not like you're gonna have your wedding with the mask on, right? I'm assuming you're gonna get married after this whole thing is over. Anyways, the crazy doesn't stop there. Let's move on to the next post. This one is from Mrs. P81405. I'm totally bride shaming. Backstory. One of my best friends, we'll call her Jill, is pregnant. Her due date is in 3 weeks. She's considered a high-risk pregnancy because of her age and some medical issues, and she's trying to do a VBAC. She actually has a home care nurse. She's supposed to be going to her sister-in-law's wedding this weekend. The wedding is at this giant screened-in pavilion place, and the parking lot is a literal half-mile from the pavilion. The bride has requested no electronic devices at the ceremony. The invite politely requests that cell phones, cameras, and others be left in the cars in the parking lot and can be retrieved after the ceremony for the reception. First, Jill tried to gracefully bow out of going to the wedding 2 months ago. She called the bride, her husband's sister, when she was assigned the home health care nurse a couple of months back, and explained what was going on and that as sad as she would be to miss the wedding, 1, an unexpected guest was in imposition on the wedding, and 2, she didn't want to cause a disruption if her water broke or something else happened. She had 1 episode of fainting at this point. The bride was all, "Oh my gosh, don't be silly." She said the nurse was obviously welcome and that as long as Jill felt physically able, she, the bride, wanted her there. Second, for the past couple of weeks, Jill has had a few episodes of false labor. She's had more dizzy and fainting spells, but they're so random that she might go a few days without any issues. She again calls the bride and says she doesn't want to take away from the bride's day. She just isn't sure if she should attend. And sister-in-law again gushes support and tells her it's no problem, please come. And wouldn't it be exciting to share a wedding anniversary with her new niece or nephew? Jill doesn't want to upset her and says she'll go. Third, Jill's hubby was called out of the country a few days ago and is currently halfway around the world and won't be back until next week. So right now, it's just Jill, the nurse, and 2 kids. I'm taking the kids in the event of wedding and or baby. Jill's husband calls his sister to tell her. Sister is all, "Oh, that's fine, I totally understand." He also requests that she allow Jill to be dropped off at the pavilion and the car will be driven back to the parking lot so that Jill doesn't have to walk a half-mile. "Not a problem," is the response. Then today, this is what has me in a rage. Sister-in-law texts Jill. 1. She informs Jill that she's unhappy that Jill's husband has decided to leave the country and has cost her $200 for his dinner plate. 2. She asks Jill if it's really necessary for her to be driven to the pavilion as the catering and band vehicles will already be parked there. 3. Since the nurse wasn't originally invited, she's not part of the guest list and during the ceremony and reception will have to wait in the car in the parking lot a half-mile away. 4. When Jill requests that she at least be allowed to keep her phone on her so she can contact the nurse, she is told, "Yeah, that's a hard no." Jill explains that the nurse is a medical necessity, and Bridezilla responds with, "So is my emotional support dog, but he'll have to wait in the car too." 5. She then says if Jill goes into labor, she guesses she will have someone run to the parking lot to tell the nurse. Jill says that she will at least sit in the back so that if something happens, it will be the least disruptive, and is told that all immediate family sit up front. It won't look right if you don't. At the end of the messages, Jill finally says, I don't feel like I'm physically able to make it to the wedding. I'm really sorry if I'm making this about me. The bride responds saying that if Jill knew that all this was going to be happening, why did she bother to RSVP in the first place? Jill doesn't answer, calls her husband and explains what's going on, and he's miffed about it, but he says sister will get over it. During their phone call, the bride texts again and tells Jill to let her know when a good time would be for her to come pick up her wedding gift and money card, since Jill decided to abandon the wedding. I was across the kitchen making food and could hear him and the naughty string of words that erupted from him when she read him the text. He said to return the gift and put the money back in the bank because she wasn't getting jack from them. Wow, man, what the hell? I mean, first of all, this bride is all sweet and yeah, don't worry, no problems, like Bridezilla. But then she goes and does a 180 and can't accept that her sister-in-law is in a real medical condition with a baby involved. I really don't understand how some people can become so controlling about a wedding. I mean, isn't it about getting married, or does it really have to be some sort of spectacle, like some sort of military parade where everything has to be perfect and squared and fantastic and, all the family has to sit up front. You can't sit in the back even if you're in labor or whatever, and your nurse, which you medically need, has to wait half a mile away from you with no way to contact her unless we send a running messenger. I know that a wedding is an incredibly important thing for the bride. It is the bride's party and it's all about her. Yeah, I get it. What do you guys think? Am I wrong in thinking that the bride is completely crazy and is asking, ridiculous things from somebody who just can't because of a medical condition? Alright, let's move on to the final post. Out of all the things a bride could need to control, why do they pick the weirdest stuff? So if one of my good friends is 5'10", we'll call her L, and her cousin is getting married. Now, said cousin is 5'11", and apparently has some weird height issue. She starts by telling my friend and the other 7 bridesmaids that no one can be taller than her, and she'll be wearing 2-inch heels, so prepare appropriately. That's fine, Elle decides she'll wear flats. Fast forward a couple of months, bride has now decided that all the bridesmaids must be exactly the same height. Since Elle is 5'10", everyone must be exactly 5'10 and a half. Apparently the heel on her flats give her half an inch, and yes, the bride thinks that's a big enough deal to warrant addressing the extra half inch. The issue? One of the other bridesmaids, her high school best friend, is 5'3". That's right, this girl needs 7.5-inch heels. Elle and short bridesmaid bring up how impossible this is going to be. Bride goes on a rant about how it's her day and her vision, and this is a small request, so freaking get over it. The issue now is that bride hates all the shoes that the bridesmaid has found that are 7 inches tall. According to the bride, they look like hooker shoes. She's complained about how horrible short bridesmaid is for making a big deal about it. As of yesterday, she told Elle and the short bridesmaid that they were ruining her day and that one of them had to drop out of the wedding party, but she would let them decide which of them were a real friend to her and which of them was a fake friend. Who even does this kind of thing? Let's face it, the bride here is a scumbag because she knows that her best friend from high school is gonna be the one to say, I'm out. And it's her best friend. I mean, yeah, sure, the tall cousin's not gonna drop out because she just needs to wear flats and everything is based on her height. So her saying one of you has to drop out and you need to decide, that's basically telling your friend, you know what, you're too short to be in my wedding party and I'm a really horrible friend, so just come as a guest. Some people, man. Alright, well once again, we've reached the end of the video. If you liked it, go ahead and click like. And of course, subscribe and join this community. Also, don't forget to go to Reddit and subscribe on the Lost Genre subreddit. I'll leave a link in the description. If you have any ideas, any stories you'd like for me to feature, you can just cross-post them on the subreddit or write them down if they're your own. Alright guys, having said all that, I'll see you on the next video.